Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something totally different and, honestly, pretty chilling. We're going to unpack a story that shows exactly what happens when the absolute unwavering confidence of modern science just crashes headfirst into the terrifying, unexplainable reality of ancient folklore. We're heading to the beautiful but incredibly cursed valleys of Madhya Pradesh, specifically a little village called Birampur. Now, on the surface, it looks like a picture-perfect postcard, but hidden in the thick fog of this place are secrets so dark they've literally paralyzed the bravest of souls for hundreds of years. So we're going to break down the mechanics of this 400-year-old curse, the scientific quest that disturbed it, and a terrifying midnight convergence that changes absolutely everything.
Okay, let's dive into this. There's really no better place to start than with the sound that literally haunts the nightmares of every single person living in Birampur. Bam bam bash, bam bam bash. Just picture it. It's a Saturday night. A young guy named Madan decides, you know what? He's going to ignore his dad's desperate warnings. He heads out into the pitch-black woods down a narrow dirt path to meet his friends. He's thinking, oh, this village lore is just silly superstitions from a bygone era, right? But then, the heavy, rhythmic footsteps start. A chant starts echoing through the trees. Now, Madan does exactly what he was taught to do if this ever happened. He dives into the bushes, hides, and holds his breath. But naturally, curiosity gets the better of him. He peeks through the leaves, just with one eye. And guys, that single, fatal glance completely seals his doom.
See, the lore of Birampur, it's not just some spooky campfire story. It has very real, very physical consequences for the people living there. When Madan didn't come home, his frantic father and another villager named Vipul actually went out into that fog-drenched forest. And what they found near this massive ancient banyan tree, well, it wasn't just the victim of a wild animal attack. They found Madan paralyzed, just frozen in a state of inexplicable, unimaginable fear. The look on his face wasn't just someone who died. It was someone who had witnessed a terror so profound that his mind and body just shattered. And it's this dark, inescapable history that keeps the entire village locked tight inside their homes the second the sun goes down on a Saturday.
So the crucial point is that the enforcers of this supernatural curfew are known as the Nishir Moharo. According to local law, these are four terrifying red-eyed figures who just march through the night. And they're carrying this mysterious coffin, a taboot, right on their shoulders. The rule here is incredibly simple and completely unforgiving. If you hear their rhythmic chant, you must hide immediately. They cannot see you, and you absolutely cannot look at them. If you make eye contact, you're gone. You do not survive. It's this flawless, deadly system of supernatural policing that's basically forced Birampur to live in the Dark Ages, just out of pure survival instinct. And this brilliantly illustrates the core collision of our entire story. On one side of the ring, we've got this 400-year-old curse, the Nishir Molo, the ancient Rajamahal palace of King Suraj Ban, all this deadly folklore. But on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we have Meghna and Ishita. Now, these are two extremely bright, kind of cynical researchers living in a modern apartment in Delhi. They're working in this fast-paced lab under a really strict boss, Professor Jaidev, who's breathing down their necks for a new antidote in just 3 days. These two are driven entirely by logical deduction, chemistry, empirical evidence. To them, ghosts and curses are literally just bedtime stories, waiting to be debunked by the scientific method.
Desperate to find some kind of breakthrough for their antidote, Ishi just starts digging into this ancient book of lore and stumbles upon something pretty fascinating. It's called the Mrityunjay Amrit, essentially the elixir of immortality. The text talks about this mysterious green liquid that drips from one very specific tree, but get this, only on the night of a full moon. Now, Ishita is just looking at this as an untapped chemical resource, a total goldmine. But for Meghna, this discovery is chillingly personal, because the tree illustrated in that ancient book perfectly, and I mean perfectly, matches a recurring nightmare she's been having. A dream where she's being chased through a foggy, dead forest by this giant, terrifying bird, only to crash right into a tree, dripping with that exact same glowing green liquid. Wild, right?
I really want you to notice how rapidly this timeline of impending disaster is tightening up. We have the historical lore, right? Established 400 years ago during the reign of King Suraj Ban. Fast forward to literally just 24 hours ago when Meghna is tormented by her nightmare of the green liquid and that monstrous bird back in Delhi. And now, at 0 hours, driven by this crazy mix of scientific ambition and Meghna's totally undeniable eerie connection to the folklore, the two girls step off a bus. They arrive right at the gates of Birampur. Suddenly, the past and the present aren't separated by centuries anymore. They are crashing into each other right at the village limits.
And almost immediately, the moment they cross that threshold, it's like the environment itself is rejecting them. We're talking undeniable supernatural omens here. The absolute second Meghna and Ishita step through the village gates, this warm, pleasant weather violently shifts into a severe, dark storm. It completely shocks the locals. The village mukhya, or headman, kindly takes the girls in, but the minute they arrive, the sacred lamp in his home temple just mysteriously blows out. And it gets worse. Across the village, the main temple's lamp also completely extinguishes, which deeply, deeply unnerves the local priest. But maybe the most unsettling thing of all, as the girls look out at the 400-year-old Raj Mahal palace, Meghna gets this massive pit in her stomach. She realizes, with absolute dread, that this ancient structure feels intimately, almost impossibly familiar to her.
Now, despite these massive, glaring red flags, their modern scientific arrogance just completely blinds them to the danger. I mean, they treat an ancient lethal curse like it's a grocery list. Step 1, find the lore in Delhi. Check. Step 2, manipulate the Mukhia's cynical son Anuj. Now, Anuj mocks the research. He thinks his village is just backward and boring. So the girls leverage his ego. They actually convince him to sneak them into the abandoned Raj Mahal palace at midnight, secretly planning to use the trip to hunt for the Mrityunjay Amrit. And that brings us to step 3. They arrive at the palace walls at exactly midnight. The main doors have been jammed shut for centuries, so what do? They literally force their way in through an old, broken window. At this point, guys, they have officially crossed the point of no return.
And right as the clock strikes midnight, the true horror of Birhampur wakes up. The winds are absolutely howling outside the palace, and suddenly they carry a sound the village hasn't heard in years. Cutting straight through the howling storm is the rhythmic, heavy thud of boots. Bam, bam, bash. Bam, bam, bash. The chilling, unmistakable chant of the Nishir Molo slices right through the darkness. The entities carrying that coffin, the taboot, they aren't dormant anymore. They are marching. The reaction from the locals, it's instant, absolute panic. The village priest just bursts into the Mukhia's bedroom, waking him up in a state of sheer, unadulterated terror. The Nishir Molo are awake, he's crying out. See, these entities had been dormant. They'd been asleep for years. But something, or someone, namely our 2 scientists from Delhi, has reawakened them. The entire village is jolted awake. You've got families huddling together in their pitch-black homes, completely paralyzed by the realization that this deadly curse is actively hunting once again. The girls breaking into the Raj Mahal didn't just put themselves in danger, they've essentially doomed the entire village. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the terror actually splits into 2 simultaneous, horrifying encounters. Inside the dark, dusty corridors of the Raj Mahal, Meghna, Ishita, and Anuj suddenly just freeze. Right over the sound of the wind, they hear the distinct, heavy screech of an ancient door creaking open, followed by the terrifying thud of heavy boots walking directly toward them in the pitch black. But wait, meanwhile, out on the forest border, 2 local gamblers, Samphat and Kapta, get caught outside in the storm. The 4 red-eyed Nishir Molo step right out of the fog and stop dead in front of them. And before the gamblers can even blink, the heavy wooden lid of the taboot, the coffin, creaks open. And from inside that coffin, a blood-curdling scream just erupts, echoing so loudly it literally rattles the walls of every single house in Birhampur. All of this leaves us staring down the barrel of a massive, utterly terrifying mystery. I mean, think about it. How on earth can a modern scientist from Delhi possess memories of a 400-year-old cursed palace? What is the true nature of that Mrityunjay Amrit dripping from the tree in her nightmares? And most importantly, what unspeakable horror just opened its eyes inside that coffin to scream into the night? This collision of science and superstition has unlocked a door that can probably never be closed again. It really forces us to ask, when you try to logically dissect ancient folklore, are you just studying it, or are you waking it up? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly recommend you ponder what exactly you would do if you heard those heavy footsteps outside your window tonight.